Hello, 大家好, I'm Grace. Recently, I've received many comments saying that you're confused by sentence final particles in Chinese, like ya, ba, etc. So today we're going to take a look at some commonly used ones. And if you like extra notes, I've also included them with more details, examples, and practice exercise in the PDF of today's lesson, which you can get from the link in the description below. OK, 那我们现在开始吧。First of all, let's talk about the usage of these particles. More specifically, these modal particles, 语气词. 语气词 are function words in Chinese, and they are usually added at the end of a sentence to show the tone of the speaker. For instance, if I say 你是学生, 你是学生, this sentence means you're a student. I'm simply describing a fact, but let's see what happens if I add some modal particles 语气词 in the sentence. 你是学生吗? 你是学生吗? Are you a student? Here I added ma to show that I don't know the answer, and I'm asking a question. If I add ba, 你是学生吧? 你是学生吧? You're a student, right? Here, ba shows that I have an inkling in my mind, but I'm not so sure. So adding 语气词 is a way to express your tone and mood in your sentences. Okay, now let's get into today's 语气词. The first one is
工作我不用找工作啊，通常都是工作来找我的啊。
can be added after a statement to show your certainty. For example, 我明天不会去啊。我明天不会去啊。我明天不会去啊。I won't go tomorrow. 我们上次见过面啊。我们上次见过面啊。我们上次见过面啊。We have met each other last time.
饭店是很舒服啊，可是很无聊啊。
It can also strengthen the mood of sentences when expressing exclamation, surprise, and reminder, etc. For instance, 好漂亮的女生啊。好漂亮的女生啊。好漂亮的女生啊。What a pretty girl. 怎么会这样啊？怎么会这样啊？怎么会这样啊？ How can this happen? 跟我讲啊，跟我讲啊，跟我讲啊。Tell me. 小心啊，小心啊，小心啊。Be careful.
下一个，谢谢。
你干嘛这样啊？
Also, can make sentences sound more colloquial and casual. For example, in daily life, when we want to say yes, right, okay, we often add like 是啊，对啊，好啊。
对啊。
你去戴牙套。对啊。
Next, I'm going to introduce 3 other 语气词 that are related to The first one is 那。You won't see this word used as a 语气词 that often, but you might hear it sometimes as it's a changed version of when is placed after the sound. In connected speech, the sound connects with the sound, so it becomes 那。For example, 我的天哪，我的天哪，我的天哪 Oh my god. But in writing, most of the time people still write instead of 那. The next one is 哇。It's also a changed version of when the previous character of ends with u or ao. Would sound a little bit like 哇. For instance, 好啊，好啊，好啊。
我们试试看，来。
But in writing, people still use and seldom use 哇. However, nowadays, 哇 is quite commonly seen on internet posts or in text because it adds some cuteness and cheerful energy in sentences. But just remember that except for 好啊, people don't usually use 哇 as a 语气词 in real life. 这样你可以吗？可以哇。 The third one that is related to a is 呀呀。
可是你的语文能力好吗？还 OK 啊 ，so yeah can talk。
Ya and a are basically interchangeable, but ya sounds less direct and more polite. And in connected speech, when there is an e sound before a, then the a usually sounds like ya. For example, 可以啊，可以啊，可以啊。对啊，对啊，对啊。
对啊。
没问题啊，没问题啊，没问题啊。Okay, now let's move on to the next 语气词 that is 吗？吗？
是吗？
It's a very common and basic one. You can add 吗 at the end of a statement and form a question, like 你喜欢她？你喜欢她？ You like her? 你喜欢她吗？你喜欢她吗？ Do you like her?
同学，你们对未来有想法吗？45000有这么好找吗？
Number 6 is 的。By now, probably you have learned 的 as a structural particle to modify a noun. However, it can also be used as a 语气词 to strengthen your certainty. For example, 我不会说出去的。我不会说出去的。我不会说出去的。I won't tell anyone. 你可以的。你可以的。你可以的。You can do this.
那人家帮人家面试的。
Okay, the next one is 了。了 can be added after a verb to show that an action is completed, but it can also be placed at the end of the sentence to show that there is a new situation or something has changed. For instance, 他决定不来了。他决定不来了。他决定不来了。He decided not to come. 因为他生病了。因为他生病了。因为他生病了。Because he got sick.
我们之间已经没有任何关系了，我要分手。
And last but not least, 把 shows that the speaker is not completely certain about something. For instance, 你没事吧？你没事吧？你没事吧？ Are you okay? 答案是这个吧？答案是这个吧？答案是这个吧？ This is the answer, right?
饭店应该比这里舒服吧？
把 can also be used to give suggestions. For example, 走吧，走吧，走吧。Let's go. 休息一下吧，休息一下吧，休息一下吧。Take a rest.
我怕会有遗憾，我们结婚吧。
哈？
Okay, that's all for today. Next time, I will introduce all the commonly used 语气词 like 呢、啦、嘛、哦 etc. Also, just a reminder, if you download the PDF of today's lesson on 语气词, it includes extended notes, examples, and practice exercises for your study. Thank you for your continued support. Alright, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. 那我们下次见喽，拜拜。